Welcome back, everyone. This is Sir RunsAlot Gaming. I'm here to show you how I do Vorkath on normal mode on my iPhone 15 for the mobile client of RuneScape 3. I'm going to start by showing you my inventory. You can see my action bar and repo bar as well. In the top left of my backpack, I have the Essence of Finality with the Tier 90 Death Guard. Next to it is the Blessed Flask for some prayer. I have the Ancient Elven Ritual Shard for some prayer, the Enhanced Excalibur for some extra heals. I have the Grasping Rune pouch that I bring runes for Disruption Shield in. I have the Powder of Protection, which is pretty helpful. It gives you 10% extra damage reduction from your overheads. I then have the Power Burst of Vitality, just in case. I have the Elder Overload Salve, the Adrenaline Renewal Flask for some extra adrenaline, the Vuln Bombs. And then I also bring Blue Belver Jellyfish, which is pretty standard, Super Ceradon Brew, which is a bit more expensive, but I think helpful. And then some emergency food and some rockfish. My Powder of Protection is really helpful. I'd highly recommend it for this fight. You do end up taking a lot of damage. I use the Aegis Aura as well for the same reason. Next to that, I do use the Scripture of a Masket. I don't actually know if it's worth it. I like it mostly because it looks cool, so use it if you want. I then have the Salve Amulet E, which is very important for the extra damage against undead enemies. I think that's just an easy quest reward for you to get. I have the Tier 95 weapons for Necromancy, and then I'm using Tier 90 tank armor for Necromancy as well. Last couple of things, I have the Occultist's Ring for just some extra damage and some extra stacks of Necrosis, and then I have the Igneous Cal Zuck. The Zuck Cape is pretty helpful, not necessary, but helpful nonetheless. So I am 120 Necro, which helps me a little bit as well. Highly recommend doing that, just get the grind done with. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I load up everything. I start by putting on my my Elder Overload Salve, making sure I have that already up. I then go ahead and turn on my Scripture Book, which I already did. I put on my Bone Shield. I do Darkness as well. That's super important. I go ahead and I conjure my spirits ahead of time. And then I go and extend the life, and when I do that, I make sure to go ahead and hit my Ancient Elven Ritual Shard and my Enhanced Excalibur to keep them on the same cooldown and to get me some life points back. And then I go ahead and command the Ghost ability just to kind of get that going early. I'm not really going to be using Soul Split this fight, mostly because of the the extra protection I get from that powder, but I do use it for this first little giant here that you have to kill. If you don't know the mechanics, basically there's 3 things you can kill out here in the wilderness. That make it so that there are less mechanics in the fight. You have to kill this giant no matter what if you're on normal mode, so I just for the sake of time go ahead and kill the giant, try to get it out of the way. I use Death Skulls on him and make sure I Vuln Bomb him and I invoke death on him just to kind of get him down as quickly as I can. My main goal here is just to get into the fight with full adrenaline and 5 stacks of souls. If you want to do this in hard mode, you don't actually have to go through any of this part of the fight. It just puts you straight into the fight with Vorkath and Zemouregal. Here we go. So there's a bunch of different places you can stand. If you've seen the RS Guy's video, I'm going to stand where he says you should stand. I go ahead and start with invoking death. I go ahead and throw my Vuln Bomb, and then I go right into the ultimate there, and I use my Adrenaline Renewal so I can get Death Skulls up as quickly as possible. I'm also praying against Necromancy because I have about 70% extra damage reduction going on right now. If you get hit by that flame of fire that he just blew out of his mouth and you don't have the Elder Overload Salve or the protection from Dragonfire thing, you're going to get smoked, so make sure that you have that. For this attack, when he's up in the air, I just go ahead and use a Resonance, and then I dive out of the way. This is the RS Guy's trick. If you haven't seen his video on Vorkath, I highly recommend it. I do a lot of what he does, just on the mobile client. I'm pretty much constantly trying to keep Death Skulls up because it is your best ability. I'm also using the Volley of Souls with the Threads of Fate so that I can kill some of these minions that get in the way sometimes. Again, pretty much always trying to keep Death Skulls going, so when it's available, I use it. Dive out of the way here for the massive spikes from Zemouregal. You'll see in this fight that I actually do miss that once. Sometimes on the mobile client, when you try to dive, for some reason it doesn't register. I'll show you that later once it happens, but it's just something to take into account. If your character's not diving, if you miss it in time, you are going to take a good bit of damage. You do have the Ballista, which is that big arrow right next to Zemouregal there. You can use it if Vorkath ends up having a shield around him. I don't end up having to do that in this fight. What you're really just looking for is if he has a shield, you want to make sure you get rid of the shield. So use the Ballista for that, or the Volley of Souls with Threads of Fate, so you can get as much damage on Vorkath and his minions as well. So I just pretty much ignored the minions, and I just keep attacking Vorkath. You can see we're already onto phase 3. Mostly because normal mode, the damage that you're taking is more, or is, I guess I should say, less than the damage that you're giving, because it's actually pretty easy to get through Vorkath on this. Zemouregal is the one that makes this fight a little bit more difficult. You can see here, Vorkath flew away, and what you're supposed to do is hit the ballista here, and it shoots him down. I actually forget to do this, and the entire map is covered with these blue spikes. I do take about half of my damage, so if you want to avoid doing that, you need to hit the ballista as soon as he flies away. So that one, it was a little bit of a mistake on my end, and it puts me on some low health. So I do end up eating a blue blubber here, and I end up eventually drinking a little bit of my Super Seer Diamond Brews. You can see there is a shield around Vorkath right now that I use the ballista to get rid of. And then he does his big blue spike attack, and I resonance that to just get basically taking 1 hit instead of 3 when you do that. And then I'm trying to dive out of the way of Zemouregal's super big spike attack. If you see the like rustle on the ground underneath your player like that, that's when you know Zemouregal's about to do that. And in phase 3, what Vorkath does is he spits up these pink little blobs of poison. You basically just want to make sure you are not standing in them. That can be slightly difficult on the mobile client because it's kind of hard to tap on the ground. So if you just zoom in as close as you can, it makes it way easier to tap specific places. As you can see, I wasn't really standing on it anyway. I just wanted to make sure that I was out of the way. So, and when you're trying to zoom away from Zemouregal's big spike attack here, when you're trying to dive away, you just want to dive in a place where that poison is not sitting on the ground. So I do all the same mechanics here that I just told you about. I go ahead and resonance Vorkath's big blue spike attack, and he's pretty much close to getting down. Just make sure you have him invoke Death, and he'll go down at 30,000 HP. This is the time where, for some reason, my dive did not work. I had to basically run out of the way. I got kind of lucky on that because his spikes didn't hit me when it kind of looked like I might have been in the hitbox there. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up eating a little bit more food. Zemouregal does hit pretty tough. I'm making sure to use Reflect a whole bunch. If you saw my Zuck video, you'll know I use that kind of often in PVM because I just find it easier with Necromancy. So I make sure I use the reflectability. I make sure to dive out of the way of his big spike attack, and I'm just going to slowly damage him down. I'm going to keep using my Death Skulls and my Volley of Souls whenever I have 5 full Volley of Souls. And I'm just going to get him down with the Invoke Death here at the 30k mark. That was about a 5-minute kill, so if you are slightly less good at the DPS part, it might take you a little bit longer, but I think as long as you're surviving, you should be good. I'm going to collect my loot here. If you didn't know, at 100 Vorkath kills, you get the upgraded version of the Nexus that holds all of your Necromancy runes, and that's really what I'm just going for here. I want to get my 100 kills so that my bone shield actually is a good bit better than it is right now. So that's how I do Vorkath. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.